Hey guys, it's Hannah and I'm here today with my January wrap-up and all of the books that I acquired in January. So for all of the books that I acquired, I will do a little book haul for you guys. So I know the whole point of this Roll My TBR is to get this bookcase down because all of these books are books that I have not read and I should not be buying more. But also, how am I supposed to resist these new titles coming out? So here we are. The two books that I actually purchased are these two. So this one came out at the beginning of January. This is Shine Your Icy Crown. This is Amanda Lovelace's new poetry book. And I'm pretty excited because it even has like little pink accents in here, if you can spot them. And then it also says, it has a poem, and then it also says Big Sister Says, and I have a really good relationship with my big sisters, so I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's gonna have a lot of relatable moments, and yeah, this one I'm really looking forward to. I am chomping at the bit to get to this one, and that is Chew Volume 1. This is the first course. If you guys remember, I was really into Chew, C-H-E-W, that graphic novel, because it was so different and unique and fun, and that one starred Tony Chew, who was a sociopath who could chew on dead bodies and figure out how they died. He was a cop and a detective, and this is his sister, so it is literally a sister series. And this one, she is a Sibiopar, and she learns secrets from who she eats with. So it said Tony is a cop and Saffron is a criminal, and I think this is gonna be so good. The few volumes that she was like really took a starring role in, she was hilarious, and I am very excited to get to this one. You guys have no idea. So this one is getting read next month because as soon as I saw this was releasing, I was like looking for it every single day for like a week and a half until it finally showed up in the store. So I'm really highly anticipating this one. These two I don't know as much about, but they came into the store as ARC copies, so I snagged these ones, and I don't know when I'm gonna get to them, but they sound pretty good. So Peter Swanson, he is a very popular thriller author. I've never read, I actually have another one of his arcs on this shelf, which is 8 Perfect Murders, which I've heard is really good. I saw this one, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll pick it up. I mean, I shouldn't because I have so many books to read, but I couldn't resist because it sounds really good. So it says, every vow you break, the lies started with I do. And of course, like, the cover is just stunning. It says, a bride's dream honeymoon becomes a nightmare when a man with whom she had a regrettable one-night stand shows up in this electrifying psychological thriller from the acclaimed author of 8 Perfect Murders. That's all I really want to know with thrillers. I like thrillers, and I want to actually sit down and read it because I feel like I would go through thrillers, but I tend to pick up thrillers on audiobooks so I can get sucked into, but I do want to read this one. So this one comes out in March. So I do have a little bit of time to read this one. And this one also comes out in March. This one comes out March 2nd, and it is The Lost Apothecary. Look how stunning this book is. And let me tell you, like, I saw it, I was intrigued by the cover, and then I read the synopsis and I was like, oh, I want that. And I already have a bookish friend who has already started this, and they said it was really good, and I'm really hoping for a sapphic romance in here because I think it would be perfect, but I don't know that for sure, so don't quote me on it. So this one stars a female apothecary, and she dispenses poisons to help women escape the men who have wronged them, and that just sounds so good. And that's why I'm like, that would be perfect for like a woman-woman romance, like, but I may be reaching. Well, I'll read it and let you know. This one doesn't come out until March. I am looking forward to this one, and I'm obsessed with this cover. It's so pretty. So those are the 4 books that I have brought into the fold and added to my physical TBR. So hopefully I will get to those soon. Now on to the monthly wrap-up of January. I did complete my January goal for my January TBR, which I'm very excited about. So I am 1 month underneath my belt of being successful, I have to get 3 months to be able to get a new dice set. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go ahead and watch any of my TBRs as of late and you guys will see what I am talking about. So before we jump into my January wrap up, let's go over the stats for the month. So in the month of January, I read 8 books. I physically read 170 pages, which is not great. I definitely did a lot of audiobook time. I'm trying to up my physically reading pages, but here we are. I listened to 46 hours of audiobook. My average rating was a 3.4, which is not great. I did acquire 6 books this month, the 4 that you physically saw, and I bought 2 audiobooks, and I checked out 4 library books. So this is my snapshot review of my month here, and let's get into the first book that I read. First off, I finished Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I loved this one. So this one is all about the 7 deadly sins, and they are personified, and they are the devils, and you physically can meet them. And it stars 2 witches who are fated. They need to be protected from these devils, and they have a very suspicious grandmother who is constantly telling them to be careful, don't go out at dusk, like that's the witching hour, like that's the devil's hour, and they have to do all of these protection spells and whatnot. Also, they're in hiding because witches aren't accepted in this time. And this also takes place in Italy as well, so you get like the fabulous cooking elements of Italy. Their family owns a family restaurant, and so cooking is a big part of this, also with making protection spells and things like that. This did give me very similar Sarah J. Maas Court of Mist and Fury vibes. It is a hate to love, and all of it was really good. So I ended up rating this one a 4 out of 5 stars. The second book that I completed in the month of January was Didn't See That Coming. Pop a picture here. This was the audiobook that I listened to, I got from my library. This one, I usually love Rachel Hollis's books. She does really good self-help books that kind of kick you back into gear and get you motivated. I usually rate high and love them. However, this one fell very flat for me. I ended up rating it only a 3 out of 5 stars. Because this one actually takes place after her marriage has ended and after 2020. Understandably so, those are very big events in people's lives, and it just came across a bit sour. And she also talked about trauma from her childhood and her parents and not handling the raising of her and her siblings that well. And she kind of blames them for a lot of things. This one just didn't sit well with me. I did think that she had some interesting points, and it was fast and easy to listen to, so that's why it did get a 3 out of 5 stars, but I did have to knock it down a few points because it just wasn't, she had some sour notes in here, and it just kind of like turned me off of the book a bit. So it did get some serious docking for it, but I did enjoy parts of this one. Next up, I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I finally finished this one, and I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. This one was super hyped for me because everybody's loving this one, and I liked it, but it wasn't crazy in love with this one. This one's got really good fibromyalgia rep, and I really appreciated that. It talked a lot about how hard it was for her to do everyday things that are very easy for able-bodied people, and it definitely made me look at that disease differently. My sister has fibromyalgia, so I really appreciated reading this type of book and having a better understanding of the things that she goes through, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. The thing that killed me the most is this is a romance book, and I didn't love the romance. I did appreciate that they were very real characters. They had flaws. They weren't super idolized in this book. They were real and raw, and they both worked on themselves together separately, but while they were together, and I appreciated that. This is a very healthy relationship in a romance book, which is something you don't often see. it just wasn't super gripping enough for me to like keep coming back. I think because it was a healthy relationship, that there wasn't drama, there wasn't big issues. It was just day to day. So this is a very like comforting, solid read, but it's not something that like keeps you on the edge of your seat because it is a healthy relationship. So there is just dull everyday moments throughout here too. But this book does take place trying to cross off lists. So she is trying to get a life and she is trying to enhance her sense of living. And so she makes a to-do list of life things, and he comes along and helps her. So this one was good, but it wasn't one of my favorites. I would recommend this one to a lot of people though, so I understand the hype. Next up, I finished Love and Olives. I checked this one out from my library. This one takes place in Greece, and it has very interesting father-daughter relationships. It has mental health rep, which I found was very interesting, the way that that was handled. I won't say whether or not I think it's a good or a bad rep because I don't prescribe to that mental health thing, but it is a plot point device, so take that with what you will. But it definitely made a lot of sense for the plot lines. So this one is all about a daughter who flies across the continents to go to Greece and be with her father, who is on the hunt for Atlantis. And I really liked that aspect of it. He is making a documentary and wanted her to be a part of it, and she kind of gets to know him back again because she felt like she was discarded and was left behind when their parents separated. So I enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked the traveling aspect of it. Jenna Evans Welch always does really good Wanderlust books, and it gives me like that Mamma Mia vibes about just like taking off and onto an adventure. So I really liked that aspect of it. I liked the dynamics between her little brother and her dad and new acquaintances on the island. And then the whole Atlantis bit was very interesting as well too. And it's definitely like a coming of age, coming into your own, because she is on that brink of from high school going into college, and I quite enjoyed this one. Next up, I read Tools of Engagement. I did this one on audiobook as well. This is a companion novel to the Hot and Bothered, I believe, or Hot and Hammered. It's a Hot and Hammered series. I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. This one was very cringe. What I really liked about this one was the day-to-day lives, not the sex scenes. The sex scenes were very cringe. It follows a sister who is trying to make it out on her own, competing as, instead of just an interior decorator, she wants to actually flip the houses and do the work. And this is like, she's going head to head with her brother. There ends up being this film crew who is interested in this duo, and then they do a flip and compete against each other. And the love interest ends up being her contractor. So there's that dynamic there. The age difference between the guy and the girl were not, it's not a problem, but it was a problem for our main character, and she had a major hang up on it. I also felt that the fact that Wes was 23 and how confident he was in his sexual ability and overall prowess felt unrealistic to me, because it was just dialed up to a 10 in this book. What I did really appreciate was that he was taking care of his sister's kids, because his sister wasn't in the right mental state to take care of her kids. So this 23-year-old took in this child and was trying to raise her, and I did like that dynamic being played out, also with the neighborhood and everything going on. So I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not my favorite in the series, it's not my worst, but the sex scenes definitely were very cringy, and it knocked down my stars quite a bit. Next up, I ended up reading Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour, and I cannot believe that I waited on this one for so long. I really enjoyed this one. So this one is very different. It takes place in LA. It takes place from a young girl being a set intern helping design sets for movies, and she gets an opportunity to be the set director, like from someone else. And that part was just very, very interesting because I've never read something from that point of view, where like how they acquire them. They go to estate sales and look for certain things, and you get to see the creative vision. So I really liked that. This is also a female-female romance, and here she ends up going to an estate sale, finding something in one of the items that she buys from someone who is very famous that died, and it says like it's supposed to go to this person, and so she kind of goes on an investigation hunt to find this person to pass along this message or letter, and that's where our love interest comes into play. It's very gritty and real. It talks about like different classes and how that affects opportunities and such. And yeah, this was just a fun read that I wasn't expecting, and I liked the romance. I was very interested in the love interest character and her story, but I also really liked our main character, who has that creativeness, and we get to see behind like how she creates sets and the little details she's done into place, which I've never read about before. So overall, I really enjoyed this. I cannot believe I waited so long, and I would say that this is pretty good rep for Women Loving Women book. I ended up rating this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Enjoy the View by Sarah Morgenstern. I will put this up here, or Morgenthaler, and I ended up rating this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This one was part of the Moose Springs series, and I was highly anticipating this. This one came out this year, and I'm glad that I was able to snatch it up and listen to it. I really enjoyed this one. This one was much more of an adventure novel versus a romance book. We definitely had the romance in here. This takes place with a movie star main character who is wanting to be taken more seriously, so she is trying her hand at the director slot, and she is sick of being just cast as the pretty girl in the movies and being objectified, so she's trying to make this documentary on Moose Springs for the Moose Springs tourism, and she's trying to showcase all of the awesome things that there is about Moose Springs. However, Moose Springs being Moose Springs, they don't like tourists, they don't like bringing people here, so no one wants to help her. They don't want to help her get permits, they don't want to like let her have interviews or anything like that, so they're making it very difficult. One thing she can do is shoot the wildlife, so she ends up going on this hike and falling in love with her hiking instructor, or you know, up this mountain, and it is definitely an adventure novel with the blistering snow everywhere, and I really enjoyed this one, so I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It feels very different than the other two novels, which I appreciated, but you do see snippets of those characters in here too, which I really liked. And lastly, I picked up The Lost Recipe for Happiness. This one's by Barbara O'Neill, and this was also for my TBR pick off of my shelf. This one was very different. It takes place following a woman who had a tragic car crash when she was growing up, and she sees ghosts now, or she saw the ghost of her sister who died in the car crash when she was younger, and that just like randomly pops up, and she gets fired from her current position and gets offered this job as an executive chef of rehauling over this restaurant and making it what it wants. And there is romance tied in here, but mostly it's about her being a chef and how a woman in that position handles that and gets respect. And then there's also the weird ghost bits. And so her now boss, who hired her to overhaul this restaurant, is a famous director. I guess I've read a lot of books like this in January. So he is writing a screenplay, and he writes a lot of horror, and he's kind of taking inspiration from her horror and her background against her blessing and turning it into his next movie. This just turned weird with the whole horror aspect of it. I was enjoying the restaurant aspects of it, and I liked all that. I liked the nods of how food can be comforting and can recall memories and transport you to a different place by just smelling it, and I liked all of that. I liked the woman in a leading role in a kitchen where she has to earn respect and things like that. But the whole ghost thing really turned me off. It didn't make sense. There's also another subplot with his ex-wife and his child as well in here too. All of it was just felt a little, it didn't tie well together, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I ended up giving this one a 2.5. It wasn't bad by any means, it just didn't feel cohesive with the rest of the storyline, and I didn't know why all of those different fields were going. And then when books are like that, I tend to rate them harsher because they're trying to do too much. If they would have kept out of the horror aspect of it, like he could still wrote horror, but the whole ghost thing didn't make a ton of sense to me, why that was thrown in there. So I ended up giving this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So that is all of the books that I read in January and the books that I picked up. Let me know down below what books you're planning on picking up in February. I am definitely picking up Sarah J. Maas's new book, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you all for watching. Bye.